We're going to look at the concept of a paradigm. The dictionary definition of a paradigm is a model, and we often talk about business models or management models, but I don't think that word model quite captures what a paradigm is. I think a better definition, or at least an analogy, would be to consider religion. A religion is an all-embracing, all-encompassing concept. In other words, if you follow a particular religion, it will influence the way you think, it will influence the way you bring up children, your views on marriage, how you treat other people. It might even influence how you consider money, politics, and all other sorts of aspects of your life. It is a complete picture that you tend to follow. Now, if we apply that idea to management, the question is, what is the current paradigm for management in most organisations? I guess top of that list is management is about control and it's about finance. If the organisation doesn't have enough finance, it won't continue to exist, and to make sure you've got the right finance both in terms of so you might like to ask yourself the question, what is the current paradigm for managing people? Well, it's probably made up of things like we need to engage employees, we need to keep them reasonably satisfied, we need to have some way of rewarding them, so we have things like job evaluation and grading to make sure that we reward people properly. And there's probably all sorts of mixed ideas in this paradigm. Now, whether it's well designed or not is really the key here. Has it all been put together, just like a religion, that is meant to be coherent and consistent? Or is it just a mix of ideas that nobody's ever really tested out with clear evidence that has just built up over the years? So paradigms often happen by default rather than by design. And what we're really trying to do here is consider, if we had to design a new paradigm, what might it look like? Anybody who has studied the economic history of the world over the last 2 or 3 centuries will know that there's been enormous change brought about, and usually this change has its ups and downs, but it tends to be relatively steady and continuous. Maybe not so true in more recent years with computerization and the internet and various other developments, but over a period of time society changes, the economy changes, hopefully mostly for the better, but on occasions there are seismic changes. So what sort of seismic changes might we be looking at here? Well, let's look at some changes that have happened in the past first and see what we're really talking about here. For example, many years ago there was a belief that the sun revolved around the earth. This was before astronomy really became a proper science. There was a belief that time is constant, it's bound to be the same all over the universe, until we found out that perhaps it wasn't. Even in areas like art, classical art tended to be very literal art, pictures of people or pictures of landscapes, and now we have all types of art these days. And the last on this list is our view about people and how organisations view people, and basically organisations tend to see people as a cost. So these are all situations that have had to go through some sort of change, and as I'm suggesting, this change is like a bolt of lightning. It's not going to be incremental, it's going to be a fundamental shift in thinking. So if we look at some of the people who came along and changed the way the world sees itself and the way people understand different phenomena, we have Galileo, who came along and actually demonstrated through his own study that it's actually the earth that goes round the sun and not the sun that goes round the earth. And he suffered very badly for these radical views, revolutionary views of the time. Einstein completely turned physics on its head by pointing out through his theory of relativity that time isn't constant, there is space-time, there's a different concept of time. Picasso started to produce paintings that were nothing like classical art, and actually was criticised by people for producing what they just couldn't understand. And here we have today the idea of human capital management, where people are not just a cost, they are valuable capital that we need to do something with. And although it's painful, these seismic changes educate us, enlighten us. So now we accept as a fact that it is the Earth that revolves around the Sun. We accept as a fact that time can be relative in space. We've seen cubism and all other forms of art, and a lot of these are appreciated and often attract very high values in the auction room. And at last we're starting to view people as a valuable piece of capital, and we should make the best of this capital whilst it's at our disposal. This is a seismic shift though. We shouldn't expect organisations to come willingly to this same sort of understanding that we now have. The most obvious example of a seismic shift is an earthquake. That's where the word actually comes from. And we might think about the earth moving under our feet, but it doesn't have to be that literal. If we take something like Picasso's art, the picture here on the left by Picasso, the blue nude, could be seen by many people as a very beautiful work of art. But Picasso also painted Cubist paintings, and the one on the right is by Picasso, and it's a woman crying. Now Picasso had this seismic shift in his own thinking, but it made people feel very uncomfortable. They're not used to seeing pictures of women like this. They have to get used to it. They have to start to see, if you like, the beauty in it. Now we have exactly the same problem in introducing the whole concept and practice of human capital management. Both managers and employees generally have to see something in this that is in their interests, that it's a better way of seeing the world, that it's a better way of working. But we shouldn't expect people to just take our word for it. We're going to have to do some convincing for them to see the beauty that might be behind the terms human capital management.